FLW Tour tournament lasts for 8 hours. Starts out at 6:30 a.m. Today we have 5 finalists, and today they are heading in 5 different directions, all with the same goal in mind here on Lake Eufaula. Win the championship, the $100,000. Ricky Clunn here, just about to shut down. It looks like he's going to start casting less than 10 seconds, actually, from our takeoff point here. Got himself that lunker lure there. We've seen that before, and just about ready to get it wet. And while he fishes there, Ken Cook here is speeding toward his starting point up near the town of Eufaula, in fact, just right offshore. Fritz, first choice, not too far from the weigh-in spot either, but he's out in the river channel or thereabouts. There you go, Rick Clunn already scored within minutes of the takeoff. And after a 15-minute run, Ken Cook's first cast comes at 6:46.
God, first cast, I love it. Makes me mad.
And here we go, shortly after, moments after, David Fritz got a fish on as well, and
oh, I got 2.
well, he doubles up on everyone.
You reckon they're in there?
Well, this is it, championship day at Lake Eufaula in Alabama on the Walmart FLW Tour. You'll remember we started with 300 anglers, and now we're down to 5 pros who will fish all day today. Jerry McInnes for the championship, and these are guys we don't have to explain who they are to anyone who's familiar with tournament bass fishing. The guys who've been some of the biggest names in the sport for years and years. Ken Cook, we've got Jay Yellis in there, Ricky Green making his second appearance in the top 5 in two tournaments. David Fritz, who's always been near the top 4 in just about every tournament so far, and Ricky Clunn, the champion from last time, a guy who thinks he ought to win every tournament. Isn't that incredible?
It really is, and you know, it may be a little bit of a coincidence that we've got such top names at the top, but then also you have to figure these guys have a lot of experience on this lake. They have a lot of experience competitively fishing, but they really know Lake Eufaula. They've been here many, many times. They've been here at different times of the year, which is also a big deal. And so they know what to do, and it has paid off for them. They've been fishing for 4 days now, this being the 4th day. And I think that experience and their tournament toughness is really showing up.
You mentioned the time of the year. It is sort of the spawning time, but for some of these fishermen, that doesn't play into their equation, does it?
At this time of the year, it can be about as difficult as any time of the year because the fish are in the middle of doing everything. And so every day may be a different day, and your pattern for fishing the day may not be worth a hoot tomorrow. So you better have a good one for tomorrow too. And again, that these
adaptability,
they're
experience,
versatile, right?
Absolutely. And each one of these guys is supremely confident that he can win this tournament because they've all been there before. So this should be a great contest. This week's stop on the Walmart FLW Tour at Eufaula. This is not one to be missed.
Walmart FLW Tour is brought to you by Walmart. Always low prices, always. By Ranger Boats, still building legends one at a time. By Evan Root Intruder 150 with Fit Fuel Injection. And by Citgo. Citgo says go.
I started bass fishing when I was about 8 or 9 years old. I caught my first bass, at least the first one I remember. And I remember that being a special fish.
And a lady from my church gave me this plastic lure, and it was a crankbait. And she gave everybody there one, and I took this thing out there on the dock, and I threw it beside this dock, and I caught this fish. It was about a 4.5 or 5 pound bass. And there was something about that fish that I liked. I mean, this fish pulled, he jumped, and I said, you know, them carp, they ain't near as fun as these bass are.
Any of the big fish that you catch in tournaments that you know makes a difference creates 100 times the excitement in a competition that it does fun fishing. And catching a fish for fun is pretty darn good.
You know, here I am. I'm in contention to win $100,000 again.
What really trips my trigger is to solve the puzzle.
Since you sit still, I'm gonna give you a fish.
Well, here we go, the big day, Lake Eufaula, and a 100 grand first prize on the line. Look who we're starting out here with today. Ricky Green, one of the stars of our last tournament, had 20 pounds in qualifying day yesterday.
Missed him. Oh. Dropped it there and missed him.
Ricky Green from Arkadelphia, Arkansas. I'm Tommy Sanders, and your name, sir, what was that again?
My name is Jerry McKinnis. You ought
Yes,
to remember that.
exactly.
I've been carrying you around here for weeks. And this is Kenny Cook that we're watching now. Kenny is fishing those ripraps, has qualified on those ripraps, got to today on these ripraps, and boy, he's hanging with it.
There might be a good one there. No, not really. I don't know. Can't tell.
Tommy's caught a lot of hybrids off of these riprap points and riprap.
Oh, it's a
banks.
hybrid.
And
That's a hybrid there, he
Okay.
said.
yeah,
Yep,
another hybrid going for him right there.
It might actually be easier to catch the fish today because this water's muddied up from this wind blowing in here. Yesterday we probably had, between my partner and I, about 30 bass. Hit our spinnerbait, we only hooked about 15 of them.
Jay Ellis
A lot of
from
them were just
Jasper,
hitting it with
Texas,
their
who
mouth
was
shut.
qualified on all the days, fishing right here on this spot. And Jerry, what is it? Is it a shallow flat out there?
Yeah, real shallow. And you remember last week he fished this very same bank. Fished it with our soup stir man. You remember that?
That's
don't you?
right. That's right, John Ladd.
And they were fishing with spinnerbaits. You know, it's kind of funny. We watched Kenny Cook spinnerbait fishing there a minute ago, and he's fishing with probably a 3/4 ounce head on his spinnerbait, fishing a little bit deep water. Jay is fishing much lighter, probably in anywhere from 2 to 4, maybe 5 feet. And you remember the soup stir man here, don't you?
Oh, the soup stir man was our amateur or non-boating champion last week, John Ladd, and it wasn't the first time he'd been out
Thank the
fishing.
Lord. Good way to start the day.
Well, that is a good way to start the day, isn't it?
Excellent fish there.
I think you could have noticed all day long here that the quality of these fish just are
Going like that.
spectacular. That's Lake Eufaula bass, man. I don't know of many lakes that have produced 3 to 6 pound bass as consistently as Eufaula has. Not in these 4 days, Tommy, but in the last 20 years.
All right, 5 big ones in the first hour, then I can relax. But dream on. Yesterday, by this far, we already had about 7 or 8 bites. I'll talk to him, I guess.
Jay Ellis, who originally comes from California, and fishing in conditions like this is a lot different than those clear, deep lakes out there, but he does it so well.
And we've already seen 2 different styles of fishing now, and
Lord.
probably going to see a couple more.
Another style of fishing right here. Ricky Clun still within sight of our weigh-in tent. That's it, right in the background there. He's just really seconds away from where we're standing, right along the highway, too. Anybody coming to the weigh-in, we'll get to see Ricky and see exactly what he's doing.
And you know what? He's fishing now the same type of water that Jay Ellis is fishing. And again, let me just back way up there and say Ken Cook was in 15 foot of water. Jay Ellis was in 4 feet of water. Rick Clun is in 4 and 5 and 6 feet of water. but he's fishing with a lunker lure, which is, you know, fished very close to the surface.
We watched Rick a lot yesterday, and sort of he talked us through his whole day. He wasn't afraid to tell us everything he was doing. Today, he's a little bit more closed mouth. Is that because it's championship day, Jerry?
Well, I guess so. You know, here's a gentleman that becomes extremely focused at what he's doing, and that is his strength, as a matter of fact, is how focused he does get on exactly what he's doing, and he's almost, as you can plainly see, he's almost machine-like when he gets out there and starts fishing. He doesn't waste any time. Hey, and also watch how his casts are down the bank. I think we pointed this out when we were
Right back on in
Ross
Jackson,
Burnett.
Mississippi. Right.
His casts are down the bank. He doesn't put his boat out from the bank and throw into it. He gets in the productive depth or close to it, and he keeps his lure in that depth all the time, all the way back to the boat. His fishing lure is in a good zone to catch some fish.
Did you put a stopwatch on how quickly it took him to get
Oh,
that fish
man.
back in the boat, in the live well, and here he is fixing his lure, and he's casting right now. Matter of just a couple of seconds, really.
You said he's kind of quiet today, but when he does say something, it's a good idea to listen.
So one thing that fishing has in common with snow is that it's really one of the things you depend on in fishing is you work, and all of a sudden you'll have a flurry. And it's just, the flurries is what makes your day. You know, you can catch one fish every hour and a half and then have a couple of flurries during the day where you catch 2 or 3, then usually you're going to have a good day. It's very rare that it snows all day. People, even when they see you come in with 25 pounds, they think you caught them all day long, and that's very rarely the case. Usually you've caught them in about an hour period of the day, and you've struggled and worked hard the rest of the time, just like everybody else does.
I'm gonna run around for about the next hour or hour and a half and hit it, just fish little spots. Hop around a bunch, and then I'll come back here towards about noon or so.
This here's probably the deepest fish that I know, and they're probably about 10 foot deep. Actually, I've caught some fish here over the years. I've never really caught a lot, but I've always caught a good fish, so. There's a big one. Yeah.
Nobody looks exactly like that landing a fish that I've ever seen, just sitting on the edge of the boat with that rod tip stuck right down toward the bottom of the lake.
David Fritz, man, what a fisherman. And now we've looked at 4 styles of fishing on Eufaula today. David is probably in deeper water than any of our other fishermen, and he's obviously fishing a crankbait.
Yeah, that'll work.
He is fishing
That's what I
right
need, something like that right there.
on the river channel. And Lake Eufaula is famous for these river channel spots, little bends in the river channel and little high places. And David has found one that is obviously
He swallowed it too.
was pretty hot for him yesterday, and it may be again today.
A lot of spectators out there with David Fritz. I'm sure we'll talk about that
Well,
later.
some of these fish are just killing it. And actually they're knocking at the bait and they're not getting it. And if you just slow it up or stop it, they'll come back on it and hit it real hard. But I guess about every fish have been different. He just sort of sucked it in. He never hit it hard. That's a better fish than I think it is.
That's a better fish than I think it is, Tommy.
You have to run me by that one more time.
Run me by that one.
He can complain about how they're hitting all day long, but when you catch them that fast one after another, it's not all bad.
He has, so far, got a real honey hole going. And again, I point out he's right on the edge of the river channel.
Folks, if I'm breathing hard, don't get worried. This is just normal. Yeah, it's a good fish.
Now, I think you recognize this place if you were with us last week, and you'll really remember that may be pushing it. remember what the bank looks like behind a guy. But I'm telling you, if you catch as many fish as he caught last week and started out like he has today, you do start paying attention to what's in the background there and what this place looks like.
Jay Ellis, as we mentioned, is from Jasper, Texas, so that put him down around Sam Rayburn country, I guess, Jerry.
Fishes Sam Rayburn, he fishes Toledo Bend, he fishes a lot of those Texas Lake. Of course, you know, these guys travel so much all around the country that they actually have no home water anymore.
They're gypsies pretty much, aren't they?
Get in here. Got you that time. That's the third time today I've hooked this fish. You were just wanting to get caught. Thank you, Lord.
Well, he's putting fish in the boat, and he says mark the time because, as he said earlier, he's not catching them at the same rate he was catching them yesterday. Is this place playing out, Jerry?
Well, it might be, but boy, these fish in Eufaula move so much. There's no telling what'll happen in the next hour.
I had that fish earlier on a spinnerbait, same exact clump of grass. About an hour ago, I hooked him on a spinnerbait. I hooked him on this little crankbait about 5 minutes ago. I let him rest a little bit longer, and I threw back in there again with a little crankbait and caught him.
Jay Ellis is back in the same place he fished yesterday, throwing a spinnerbait and a crankbait. And Jay, you're going to stay with that place all day long today? Is that the plan?
Oh, probably not. These fish aren't doing much in here today. I'm having a hard time catching them. It's not nearly as good as it was yesterday. I think I probably caught most of the fish, or my partner had 18 pounds, and I had 19 pounds here yesterday, and we had a lot of bites, and it's been slow this morning. They're tough, but I'm hoping I can catch 2 more good ones here, and then I might move around a little bit, but I'm not going to spend too much time away from this spot.
Hey Jay, you're right at the moment you're throwing a crankbait, and most people have the idea that you just take a crankbait, throw it as far as you can, and reel it back to the boat. But there's actually a lot of fishing to be done with that bait on the way back to the boat, isn't there?
That's right. Yeah, I had one fish I caught about a half hour ago, about a 3-pounder. I'd made about 3 or 4 casts of the same little clump of grass, and he finally hit it. And but doggone it, I lost him. And so I stayed there, and I kept throwing and throwing and throwing. About 10 casts later, I caught him again. But I was really having to, I'm not using the straight, steady retrieve at all. I'm using a pretty erratic stop-and-go retrieve, trying to trigger a strike from the bass. They've seen so many spinnerbaits go over their head, you know, on a slow, steady retrieve. I'm trying to give them a little different look.
When they're a little difficult like they are right now, they're very likely to react out of instinct than they are of actually wanting to eat something or kill something, aren't they?
That's right. Yeah, early in the morning the fish are actually feeding, and they're easy to catch. Every morning when I first get here, my first pass is pretty much the best fishing of the day, and I caught a 5-pounder and a 3-pounder on my first pass today, and now it's slowed down. I'm just having to really work for them and take my time and be real thorough with different baits and different presentations, trying to trick every little last fish that's in here.
Well, I tell you what, Jay, thanks so much for talking to us, and we'll check back in with you this afternoon.
Dang, I got me a crowd out there today, hadn't I? I never will catch one here.
Nope, no way. I don't see how he's going to catch a fish today.
He's having a terrible time. I want you to know something, Tommy. David Fritz very seldom gets hung up. Now, you know, I know we're not watching him every second of the day, and he will get hung up from time to time, but for the most part, he doesn't get hung up much, which means he has very good control of his lure. He's got another good fish on him. I mean, man.
Big fish.
He has very good control of his lure. He feels it very well in the water, and when it hits something, he doesn't overreact and jerk on it.
He lets it rise,
He
rise
lets
up
it
again.
rise up again. He fishes his lure at all times.
Man, they're killing the bait. I mean, they're eating it, swallowing it.
Scoreboard is not telling us a whole lot just yet. Of course, you can see David Fritz with a slight lead over Ricky Klein and Jay Yellis there. Ken Cook, not a very fast start today, but we know that spot, and we know that he can strike pay dirt very quickly there. Ricky Green, the only guy lagging behind.
Rocks are one of the worst things on your line. Plus, I didn't really like my knot that first time anyway.
When a broken line can cost you $100,000, you pay attention to that line, don't you?
You do, and of course, Rick Klein's fishing some bridge piers, a little bit of riprap. He's fishing around some things that can give his line, give his hooks quite a bit of trouble. And you know, I want to point out that when you fish Lake Eufaula, a lot of the guys fish riprap. Ken Cook's all over riprap. The dam has some good fishing on it. There's some sunken bridges in some of the different creeks. There are a lot of things on Lake Eufaula that makes you pay close attention to your line and the point of your hook. Hey, Tommy, you know what? Something that has occurred to me here. Size this up, man. We've looked at all 5 of our fishermen. From time to time, we're bouncing back and forth. Pretty good names, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Some of
There
the biggest.
could be 100 years of fishing tournament experience amongst these 5
These
guys.
5 guys, you're exactly right.
Because there's probably 50 between Ricky Clun and Ricky Green.
I know we've said it before, and people say it's luck how well you do in a fishing tournament. Look at how the experience plays out in this one.
Boy, the cream comes to the top.
That's a better fish right there now.
Oh, Tommy, I'm getting sick of David Fritz catching fish.
Well, he's not.
I got something to point out about our buddy Fritz, too, Tommy.
Well, there's a lot of things that people would like to know
Yeah.
about Fritz.
Hey,
He's probably the
bet,
greatest
baby.
crankbait fisherman in the world. Everyone wants to know all his secrets.
And he's fishing probably in 15 feet. I mean, he's catching his fish maybe in 12, 15 feet of water. And you're gonna look at the bank. We pointed that out a minute ago. You're gonna look at his lure. You want to see what kind of lure he's using and presentation, one thing or another. Something that is so important about David
big fish.
Fritz that probably is overlooked is how he positions his boat. He has it in the
That'll
right
work.
place
Chub right there now.
with the right angle at all times.
Out in the main channel, the Chattahoochee River here, is David Fritz. Already got a limit this morning. And David, what is it about you that draws such a crowd? I mean, they called you the Pied Piper of fishing.
Why do people want to follow you so much?
Oh, well, let me get this fish in and
Catching them right before our eyes, Tommy. He's catching
my
them right in
gosh.
front of us.
That's why people follow you.
I guess, which I'm putting on a pretty good show. I've caught about 30 or 40 bass here this morning. And I don't know, the people are getting pretty entertained today, so they're getting their money's worth.
David, you know, I want to start out
By saying you're looking really stylish today. You have a great haircut.
Yeah, you know that I went over to an old-timey barber shop, and I tell you what, them guys done a pretty good job. They got it a little close, but I can live with it. This is a big fish. A big fish. A big fish. I've got him on right now. Oh, no, he come off.
Hate to see that happen, but I guess there's plenty more of them out there, right, sir?
Well, he's going to have to be pretty big to help me.
what would you say your poundage is right now, David?
I say I'm real close to 20 pounds.
We talked about the crowds and the people that follow you around. I know it's great to have all those people who are interested in what you're doing and try to learn from you and everything, but also there probably ought to be a few rules that everybody ought to follow when they're following one of these tournament fishermen around. What would help you the most to accommodate everybody who wants to watch yet not get in your way?
What kind of guidelines did they go by?
Well, you know, these guys here, they're doing a real good job. They're stand back. They're not right on top of me. They're not in here throwing where I'm throwing. And, You know, the main thing is to let us have our water till the tournament's over. That's the thing that gets most of us is a lot of times they want to see what you're fishing. They want to go up there and see if they can catch one, too. And that's what, yeah, that's the kind of thing that really hurts.
Hey, David, tell us a little bit about the lure you're fishing with.
Well, actually, I've been using a variety of crankbaits. Right now, I'm throwing what I call a big dog. It's a down deep made by Eufaula. Actually, I've got a bait that nobody else owns. This is a special cutter. They're just starting to make it, and it's chartreuse, or actually yellow with a brown back. And I don't know how many fish I've caught on it. I mean, it's just it's phenomenal. I've been sort of saving this bait to the day. I didn't throw it very much yesterday because I only got one. And I sure wish I had a sack full of them. I would have probably thrown it a little earlier. But I tell you, fish are really, the fish actually are a little deeper today than they've been, which they've been moving up in the afternoon. And you know, I have to fish several different ways to catch my fish. But I found these fish where I'm fishing right now the first day of the tournament. So I've sort of been able to stay on my other water and let these have a little rest.
Well, David, we'll let you fish on here, and good luck to you. We'll talk to you this afternoon. Probably have someone out in the audience who'll have a question for you.
The thing that's been different today is that yesterday they were out. Today, surprisingly, I think 3 of my fish have been right on the rocks, about the first foot of the cast. Yesterday they'd be out in, I'd say, 5 to 8, 9 foot of water. Early in the day, you should be covering the full spectrum of the strike zone and let them tell you where they are. They may be where they were the day before, they may not. And if you're throwing in that little select area, you'll miss them.
Words of wisdom from Ricky Clunn. We get a lot out of him, don't we, on a weekly basis, it seems like, here on the FLW Tour.
And I know that he's not concerned about this fact, Tommy. He legitimately is not concerned with this, but he's probably the all-time money winner of all bass tournaments, of all bass circuits, of everyone who's ever done this before. He's probably #1.
People use the figure $2 million that he's won, and above, and that maybe even more than that, maybe closer to 3.
His style of fishing and the way he lands fish and everything about him is so different than David Fritz, and yet both of them are extremely successful. And you know, what the heck, I think in any sport, the different athletes, the different batters, the different shooters, so on, they all have different techniques, but they have gotten so good at
totally
them
out.
that they're efficient.
I need about 2 more like that one. That was shot.
The Walmart FLW Tour is brought to you by Walmart. Always low prices, always. By Ranger Boats, still building legends one at a time. By Fitz Fuel Injection, the best of all worlds. And by Chevy, the most dependable, long-lasting trucks on the road.
Just across the lake from White Oak Creek is Ricky Green, fishing where he fished yesterday. And last night you told us, Ricky, that you had caught your fish very, very early on day number 3. That's not the case today, so is there going to be a change in plans?
You know, I've got to change my tactics. They're just not up here shallow. The lake's falling quite a bit, and I've been catching them out about 2 foot of water, and it's just not happening this morning, so I'm going to have to back out and do a little something different here in a few minutes.
Ricky, we just talked to one of the other competitors who's spinnerbait fishing as well, but a little bit deeper, and his style was obviously a lot different than yours. What is your style of fishing for spinnerbait?
Well, I just try to cover as much water as I can, Jerry, and get into shallow water and just throw it a lot of targets. You know, I'm just target fishing is all I'm doing, and every now and then one of them old big ones run up there and grab it, or it has the last 3 days. So.
And you're for the most part, when your bait passes the object and you feel like you have fished it, for the most part, are you just reeling back in and looking for another one to throw at?
Right, and I'm keeping my lure right close to the top. I'm seeing about every bite that I get, and most of them have been coming up and just rolling on top of it. Spinner bait right on top of the water. Just my way of fishing. I love it that way, but this morning just hadn't happened, so I'm gonna have to change some tactics here in a minute.
Somebody else who may be due for a change in tactics is Ken Cook, because he's not getting the fish he was getting the first 3 days.
And you know what? I don't think that we can say that his spot has wore out. Spots don't wear out on Lake Eufaula. There's too many fish down there. But his fish are probably moved. And he's been on this point a lot. And there's been lots of hybrids, there's been lots of bait fish, and there's been lots of blacks in with the other fish. But
what makes him move?
Maybe the minnows move. Maybe the bait fish move.
Barely does. Just barely do. Put him in the small fish side. The other side reserved for big ones.
And Ricky, you talked a little bit at the weigh-in yesterday about your ability to catch fish in good weather versus your superior ability to catch fish in difficult weather. Tell us a little bit more, elaborate on that a little bit, and tell us what that means in view of the weather that's changing right now.
Well, most of us humans are used to going inside when the weather gets bad, and being a fisherman, that's not very advantageous to my career. So actually what I've learned is that anybody can fish good on a pretty day. It's those windy days, those cold days, those rainy days that we really seem to have a problem, and we get into these negative modes. We'd rather be watching the basketball, NCAA basketball playoffs or something else instead of fishing, because we're uncomfortable. And I've just tried to learn to acclimate myself to weather and realize that that's really, you probably have only about 10% of the field to beat on the bad days, when you may have 80% of the field to beat on the good days because of attitude.
We talked about the possibility of winning 2 of these tournaments in a row, and if you could ask anybody involved with this, the mathematical chances of that happening, and everyone says it's highly, highly unlikely. To you, does it seem like just a tremendous achievement, super unlikely thing to do, or is there an easier explanation to how you might put yourself in position to do that?
You know, my favorite saying, it's always been from Jonathan Lemon's Seagull, it's been, there are no limits. And I really believe that. I don't believe there are any limits. I believe that actually the human potential is capable of anything. To say that we can't win 2 in a row, 3 in a row, and 4 in a row is a self-imposed limitation. So no, I really know that it just boils down to performance and getting all the external distractions out of your mind and going out there, and if I perform the way I'm capable of, then I certainly have a shot to win.
We're going to relieve you of one distraction here for a while, but we'll call you back a little later, Ricky. Thank you for talking to us.
The old shake usually works, but that one don't want to let go, does it? I guess I'm going to use the other one. I keep an osprey feather to remind me who the really good fishermen are.
There's nothing right there but fish. I promise you. It's a hard bottom, and that's what these fish are on. Yeah, this is a good fish. Stay on, stay on. This is a real good fish.
David Fritz from Lexington, North Carolina, may be the bass angler of the 90s, Jerry.
He could be, and you know what? There's a bunch of good crankbait fishermen that come from that little area in North Carolina.
Absolutely. They fish High Rock Lake and what they call Bugs Island or Carr Reservoir.
Oh, yeah. Well,
and they
barely
fish
got
this
him hooked.
style, too. This is not just David's invention. There's a bunch of guys.
There's a whole franchise back there in Lexington.
I believe so. And you know, we talked a minute ago about boat positioning right here, and I know you were kind of wondering what difference it would make
for deep fish.
Because they're deep, what difference does it make which direction
You'll go on the other side.
Well, David, who's got a pretty good one right
Another
there.
good one, real good one.
4-pounder.
David
313.
will hold his boat in the right area and throw up into, say, 6, 7, 8 foot of water, and then run it off out into 12, 15 foot of water.
Thank you, honey.
You bit me when I needed you to start with.
And when it comes off into that deep water, it needs to come from the right direction. And you know what? We can see a lot of boats sitting around David Fritz right now. Oh, yeah, David, catch another one.
Yep,
And
another good one.
quite honestly, many of those fishermen could not come in there and catch these fish because they wouldn't know exactly where to position their boat.
But they are loving the show. There is no doubt about that. He'll probably have more boats as the day wears on, especially if it continues to catch them at this rate.
Oh my God, this is the fish right here. This is him. If I can catch this fish right here. This is a $100,000 fish, no doubt.
See, that's why golfers need caddies out on the PGA Tour, to keep equipment problems like that from happening. He's got a barricade that's going to keep him from catching fish there.
Have you ever known a fisherman to get so excited? Have you ever known such an experienced fisherman to get so excited over every single fish? But, you know, I have to admit, Tommy, he's wrestling with one right now that you should get excited about.
That is, it's a tournament maker right there.
Yeah! Woo! Yay! Woo! There right there is going to do it. Man, thank you, Lord. Oh, man. Woo. Take a break, David.
I started when I was young, fishing for fun, and I still fish for fun. I never will forget, the first opportunity I've ever had to fish for $100,000 was in 1985, and I've never accomplished that dream, never winning $100,000.
We're going to say that's 10 pounds right there, and we'll count this as 3. Ah, they ain't that something to throw a fish back like that.
You never know what size fish you're going to catch, and
I got me a load, babe.
you get a rush that's just unbelievable. And I even told the folks on film that, you know, when you catch a fish like that and you don't get excited, then you don't need to be fishing.
I get so god dang nervous I can't hardly fish.
Hey, well, Ken, I'm talking to Becky Miller, and Becky's from Tallahassee, Florida. And she's actually a new fisherman, hasn't fished a lot, and she has a very good question for you.
Okay, hi, Becky.
Hi. As the brand new angler who's only fished 3 or 4 times, what would be the one real comment, suggestion you would give me?
I think learning about your opponent, the fish, is probably the key to catching more fish. And there's a lot to learn in that area, certainly.
Watch any of the learning fishing shows that are on TV, the videos, read magazines about bass fishing. You can learn that about the fishing side.
And then try to pick up on as much biology as you can. And that comes from my background as a fisheries biologist, but I think anything you can learn about your opponent in a situation like this is going to help you.
Some good advice there from Ken Cook, and here's a guy who knows his opponents, at least how they lie in this particular hole right here, David Fritz. He's got another good one, it looks like.
And Tommy, I got one more interesting statement from David Fritz. He was telling me the other day that when he leaves the dock and he's got all these crankbaits on, like he obviously would have on maybe 6 rods, he says if he has a different bill and a different color on every rod, that means that he's still searching. But he says, Jerry, if you see me leave the dock and I've got 5 crankbaits on and they're all with the same bill in the same color, then you better watch out.
Smallest fish I got in there is 2 4-pounders. 2 4-pounders, 2 4.5s.
and a 7. 4, 8. 8 and 8, 16. 17. I got 24 pounds. No doubt about it, are they?
Also, no doubt about today's Fuji flashback. David Fritz, just moments earlier, you saw him land what he thought was a $100,000 fish that may well turn out to be. Fritz closing in on 25 pounds, only 15 minutes left to fish. Are there fish big enough in Eufaula that Rick Clunn can make a last final run at him?
Well, you know there are, but it's going to be pretty tough. And this looks like he's getting a little bit of help right here. Hey, and I hope everybody noticed right there that Rick Clunn was hung up. And when his lure came unhung, a fish immediately jumped on it. What a tremendous time to catch a fish. First of all, when you hang up, it kind of attracts a fish to your lure probably, and then it jumps off that stick or that rock or whatever, and boy, they nail it. That was a perfect example of that. And there's a fish right there that can help Rick Clunn. Tommy, first place isn't the only thing around here that brings a good paycheck to these guys.
Oh, absolutely. $40,000 for second, $20,000 for third place, $15,000 for fourth, $10,000 for fifth place, and we're about to find out who gets what here in just a second. It's just about that time. We've seen some great performances today and some tough ones.
Had my limit this time yesterday. Here I am, 0.
That's it for today.
Somebody's won 100,000, but it ain't me.
Oh, I love this.
A lot of people here today.
Who wants one? Anybody want one of these? One way over there. All right. One way over yonder. How about that? Way up front, and got one up front. Oh! Oh, number 1 on the left there from Arkadelphia, Arkansas, Ricky Green. Ricky's the guy, finished second place in the last tournament, makes the top 5 again. Still got to feel great, even though no fish today, right, Ricky?
Well, sure. I had my good days, but I had my bad one today, which was, the big money day. But
even after all these years, is it still fun for you? Do you still get enthusiastic about it?
oh, I couldn't even sleep last night. I was so excited, knowing that I had a chance for $100,000.
From Jasper, Texas, Jay Ellis.
Fishing is really an art when you really get into it and you fish as much as we do, and I keep learning more and more all the time. And I didn't know quite enough this week to come out on top, but I had a good time, and I'd like to come back and fish Lake Eufaula maybe again next year.
We'd love to have you. Another big hand for Jay Ellis, everybody. From Mears, Oklahoma, Ken Cook.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've been standing here close to winning and having the opportunity to win, and it's nice to be back in the company of these guys that are up here. This is an awful strong crowd and to be amongst.
How about these two, huh? Can't beat that. Ricky Clunn, still 14 pounds, 4 ounces on top. David Fritz, 4th fish for David Fritz. Fish number 4, pretty fish. Wow. 4 pounds, 12 ounces, that'll do it. David's still in it. A big hand for David Fritz. Three pounds, 4 ounces is what it's going to take. 3 pounds, 1 ounce. Our hearts were stopped. You almost did it again. 2 in a row. That's phenomenal.
Well, I knew I had a good shot. I really fished very well the last 2 days, so I really have no complaints about the way I fished. David is a super fisherman. I don't mind losing to any of these guys because I really don't compete against any of them. It's really out there just between me and the fish and the elements, and that's what I enjoy the most about this sport.
All right, Rick Clunn, another big hand. You're a great champion, Rick. Let's bring our champ up here right now. David, let's have one more fish. He's our winner, but he's got one more fish. Oh, oh my goodness. Let them see it. $17.7 already. Add to that 8 pounds, 6 ounces. Wow. David, I know this is a moment you've been waiting for a long, long time. This $100,000 day. You talked about it a lot yesterday.
You know, this sport has been so good to me, and it's been good to everybody. And you know, how in the world can we ever repay what it's done for us? It's real hard. I've had a lot of folks out there with me today, and thank goodness, great fans. You know, these folks in Alabama, they're the greatest. I tell you what. Anybody got a house for sale down here?
The Walmart FLW Tour is brought to you by Walmart. Always low prices. Always. By Ranger Boats. Still building legends one at a time. By Johnson Fast Strike 150 with fixed fuel injection. And by Chevy, the most dependable, long-lasting trucks on the road.
See, the big one, my net got tangled up in all my rods, and I ended up having to belly land him, man. And I was about to have a heart attack because he jumped 5 times.
Well, we got some important business to do here now. Mark, step right up next to David here. Let's see what we got in there.
Open this up. Let me. Does a briefcase come with it? That's a lot of money, but you know, you need to realize that money's not everything in life, and winning the tournament and thanking the Lord is the most important thing. And